Hey, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. If you haven't already done so, please visit ProRelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. I am the author of the newly released book, The Post-COVID Marketing Machine: Prepare Your Team to Win, and you can find out more information on this at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. So has the AI wave run its course, or is it just beginning? I think we're seeing that it's really just beginning, and the true wave is coming behind it. And the big question on the minds of CMOs and entrepreneurs in the C-suite is how will AI impact their activities, especially in the marketing department? So let's see if we can help you out today. Today, we're going to be talking to Corey Morris of Voltage Digital. And so let me tell you a little bit about Corey. He is the founder and CEO of Voltage, a premier digital agency focused on digital marketing and websites. He authored the Digital Marketing Success Plan that details why companies need a documented, objective, and accountable digital marketing plan in today's era of unprecedented change in the digital marketing industry. Corey has spent nearly 20 years working in strategic and leadership roles focused on growing national and local client brands with award-winning, ROI-generating digital strategies. His industry leadership, client success, and community-focused work made him recipient of the KCDMA 2019 Marketer of the Year Award. Wow, that's fantastic, Corey. Welcome and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Corey, what is your backstory on marketing and AI? How did you get involved in this?
Without giving you the hour-long version that we should do another time, I started my career as a project manager in a digital shop before everything was open source web. So I learned basic HTML and CSS, and that got me really interested because I had an advertising degree, marketing and advertising degree, wasn't technical. And so that was really the first time that I could embrace how the World Wide Web works and to understand it inside and out, data structure and database and data layers, in addition to coding and how it all comes together. So I'm happy about starting in an era where things were so manual and hands-on, just ahead of the ramp up to open source and a lot of more programmatic and dynamic things coming along, because that helped me understand it from the inside out versus having to try to layer tools on top of tools on top of tools that we see today, where we don't always know what's inside the black box or how what the outputs are going to be. Fast forward, I ended up in a career doing search engine optimization. I leveraged understanding some of the code and the basics to be able to work through how Google works and understanding what we could know about its algorithms from the outside. That ever-changing world has been interesting because it's SEO has been quote unquote dying or gonna die for however many times, and over when Google took away keyword data, when smart speakers and different voice search features came out, and now with AI. In fact, I wrote it. I've written articles for both Search Engine Land and Search Engine Journal on the topics of AI and SEO, and is it really going to die this time? And my answer right now is um, either it's going to adapt like it always has and account for AI, or it will die and we'll naturally move to the next thing. We'll be optimizing for AI. As a digital agency, there's always going to be a client or a brand out there that wants to be found by their target audience, wherever that audience is. And so that's what gives me comfort. While so many other things in AI are awesome for being able to speed up and find efficiencies or do things that would take us weeks or months, or we wouldn't be able to do in the past, or versus making us obsolete at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting because you mentioned SEO, of course, and if all of the content ends up being generated by AI and with a little bit of human intervention and change in there, then will Google and some of the other search engine search engines, will they be able to see that and say, this is just, this is just optimized not for humans, but for somebody else. And so I'm going to then downgrade it. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what happens there.
Well, and what's funny about that is we've seen this before. We didn't have it with AI, but we had it with keyword stuffed content that was
Mm.
just okay, where and it didn't look great to humans, but maybe it wasn't terrible, but it was maybe a 7 out of a 10, a 6 or 7 out of 10. But then when everybody's doing it, it's not, the we're not getting to a 10 out of 10. And then those who are rising above, and able to reach their audience. And so we've seen some of that with AI where you can kind of recognize it and it's okay. And maybe it answered your question or didn't, but maybe it lacked a brand and a human element or a strategy to it or something distinctive. Or maybe it, didn't really answer your question or take you down a funnel to buying the thing that you're researching to try to buy. So there, and if to your point, if everybody is right there, we're all a seven, then what makes you stand out? And so those are some of the challenges now until we get to a point where AI can be at a level where it can understand brand strategy and some of the emotions of that buyer and that persona in their journey and where they are in that moment when they interact with that content.
Well, and two, websites today, usually what somebody is trying to do is get a question answered. And so you wonder if you even need a website, so to speak, a static website, as to rather just put in, a little chat GPT box that says, what do you want? What do you want to know from me? What do you want to know about my products or whatever? Type in something and I'll give you the answer that you're looking for. And so then, the experience doesn't even have to be, the beautiful digital whatever. It's just just give me the raw data, so to speak.
Yeah, and that trend actually started years ago before AI's emergence, with the direct answer box and some of the rich snippets and rich data feeds that Google has been pulling in. Publishers and website owners have been frustrated for years with zero-click searches and some of the trends. Rand Fishkin has maintained some really good data showing how the percentage of clicks from search results has been dropping, and so in some ways, in a lot of ways, I'm really encouraged by shaking up the industry. And I'm not going to get into, too much into, I won't get anything into politics, but even with, monopolies and antitrust stuff, if Google gets broken up into some pieces, I see that as an advantage because it seems like every time we get comfortable as marketers or SEOs, then we're fighting for this little sliver, right? There's a lot of parity. We're doing a lot of the same things and it changes the game. So AI changing the game plus maybe a broken up Google where there's more options and more search volume in different places, creates a bigger challenge to master. So either you're up for it, which I believe my team is, or you're not, and you're moving on to something different. And so that's it's kind of interesting, of how it shakes out, and it really puts an emphasis on how much you're focused on the user intent versus just broadly targeting terms. And so, like we mentioned a minute ago, some of what stands out is some of that human optimized human nature, like what somebody's really doing when they're searching for this. When are they, especially on the B2B side of things, they have a business problem, so they just
Mm.
became aware of it. Now they're searching and researching, and in research mode you're probably not buying. So if you're hitting them too hard with calls to action to fill out a form or to sign up for a SaaS product, you're probably too soon and you're in the way and you're gatekeeping some of the content that they're researching for. On the other side of it, if you're giving them long form content and they're at the bottom of the funnel and showing intent where they want to reach out now, where they've done their research and they're ready to speak to someone or to click through and make that purchase, get out of their way. And so all that content in between in those funnels are important. And so while there are less aggregate universe of clicks to be had maybe from the search results, being more about quality rather than quantity, it's always been really what you want, but there's more of an emphasis now of getting the right traffic and understanding where it is.
Yeah, and I will admit I think you're right. I think search traffic is going to go down. I mean that I can't remember what it's called, that Google AI
AI
answer.
overviews.
Yeah, the overview. Man, oh man. I use those probably 50% of my time now because I'm usually searching for some answer to something or whatever. I'm not necessarily trying to search for a bunch of, stuff and then click through and try and wade through a website or anything like that.
Well, and what's happening right now, just like people are like, well, I never click on the ads. Well, enough people click on the
Yep.
ads that Google makes it, that's still its biggest profit margin or profit engine is ad revenue.
Yep.
But what Google's doing now, even for those of us who know better and or have trust issues with it, like I do, because I've been monitoring it so closely, go back to when it first launched in a very hurried and rushed way. Um, I don't know if you remember, but back in May, OpenAI was about to have one of their events and make some announcements. It's speculation, but we can correlate it probably pretty well. That Google assumed maybe Search AI was or Search GPT was coming out then. OpenAI didn't announce that at all, but Google preempted that morning event of OpenAI by launching AI overviews all of a sudden. And they were out in a huge percentage of the search results, and they were terrible. I mean, it was telling you to put glue on pizza and do a lot of weird. That's some of in the medical and healthcare space were horrible about treatment things to do, but quietly they rolled them back and the percentages, there's some great data out there. Jim Stern presented some as an event I was at this summer, and now they're coming back again. But now that they're coming back, we're finding that they correlate often, most often, to a page one organic result as well. So they're coming back, but they're tuned heavily to content that shows up on the page. And what does that sound like? To me, that sounds like a scrolling in interactive looking reference that looks like that answer box that has traditionally appeared at the top.
Right.
And admittedly, I admit that it feels like the quality has gotten better. I still find myself looking at it, scrolling down a couple of results to correlate or corroborate the
Hmm.
answer, and then before I go back to it, especially if it's I'm looking for some way to connect inputs on a couple tech devices or looking for a consumer electronics product review for some things I was buying for my house. I'm scrolling past it to get some trust before I come back up to it. But that's me because I have trust issues. I've been monitoring them since day one. What Google is doing is even whether they're accurate or not, they're changing user behavior and
Yeah.
expectations. So
Big
eventually they'll
time.
be there. And eventually, as the data gets better or it doesn't, we're used to the answer being right there and not scrolling. And so that's definitely significant in changing behavior.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I mean, like I said, I'm getting so many answers. Well, anyway, we kind of got off a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Voltage Digital.
Yeah, so we're a digital agency. We're based in Kansas City, but our clients are all over North America and beyond. Our focus is really on two things. We started as a creative agency and a more full service agency, but we've narrowed our focus heavily into the things that we feel like we do as well as anyone in North America, and that is search, which is both SEO and paid search, and for the right fit target audience for us, the way we do websites as well. So um, we've got our team here in Kansas City and spread out across the country focused on those. Separately or kind of integrated, I launched the digital marketing success plan, and that is actually Voltage's. That's the title of my book, but it's also our flagship digital strategy and planning product or service, if you will.
Yeah, and that makes such a difference. So many people and guilty as charged in some respects is, what is your digital marketing strategy? We all know what the end point is, and that is more sales. But how do you get there in a stepwise, professional way and do it in a consistent and repeatable way with high ROI? So how should companies, account for AI and their online presence and digital marketing?
Yeah, this is probably actually I get into this when my publisher consulted with me on my outline. They're like, you should probably talk about the future and get out your crystal ball in one of the later chapters. And so what I consistently see are a lot of either wasted time and efforts off in the abyss, focused on AI, or people put, so what I call chasing the shiny object of it, or putting their head in the sand and ignoring it altogether. There's a balance, and it's not the same for everyone, and that's the challenge. Is it's a unique balance to make sure you're not being left behind, but that you have structure around your investment in AI and the time in it, not taking your eyes, focus off of what works today, driving ROI, but not getting left behind on what works tomorrow. And that's one of the hardest things. And I'll say, so many of us, if not the majority of marketers, feel that like they're behind because we don't have a reference point to compare ourselves to typically, or if we're comparing ourselves to each other, somebody is always ahead of us because they're on the coolest newest thing, or they've built the newest thing, or they've got their own LLM doing something that we haven't gotten ours to do yet. So that's the challenge, is some of the imposter syndrome involved with it, and finding that way and that methodology on your own to test. Internally, we're on the agency side here, we have a task force, and that task force is, one, to make sure we're not all doing 17 different things and testing things and not doing it together, but two, to rein in our time and make sure there's intentional time set aside for it. So we're not busy with our day to day, and then this gets pushed to, you either want to be in it and you're in it at 8 a.m., or you realize that, hey, I want to do something with this, but my day got away from me and it's 11 p.m. and now I'm testing something or
Yeah.
building something too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I did had a dinner. Well, no, I guess it was a lunch, and had a handful of VPs and CMOs of mid-sized companies, large companies, and it seemed like the biggest thing was they didn't know where they were compared to everybody else, and so there was potentially a little bit of FOMO, or are we behind or are we ahead? And it seemed like they were all about the same, in about the same boat. Some of them were doing maybe something more in one area, some were doing something more in another area, but they were all actually doing some pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I saw some annual research data from Agency Management Institute this year. Their audience research focused on brands and corporations who would be my target audience, and there were so many areas or a couple areas where it popped up, and it was evident to me that they look to their partner, every vendor, it seems like, whether you're an agency and you're aligned with the marketing team, or you're in other areas, to be bringing them along or bringing them AI enabled solutions to help be part of that, and not be the sole driver, but expecting their entire supply chain to be part of that. And that was interesting for me to read and see at that same point. Now, the big challenge here is some industries are heavily regulated, and it's where can you find the right safety, oversight, where can you get compliance comfortable with some AI aspects, again, to not be left behind. We see, different banking products and things like that too, and it's like, oh, that's interesting because they got comfortable with that. I'm sure there are tons of checks and balances, but it's cool to see that online banking thing show up in the space. And in other cases, there are things where we're like, I don't want my health data plugged into anything necessarily related to AI yet, if it's open source. And so I hope, as a consumer, that there's some of those safeguards in place too. And unfortunately, we have heard about some high profile cases with things getting leaked out there, in some cases sensitive data, in other cases things like code. But there's that definite balance and that feeling that, as a brand or as an agency, we want to be pushing forward and making sure we're all aligned in our ecosystem of
Mm.
what we're using and how we're using it, and that we're moving forward with it.
Yeah, you mentioned data getting leaked out there, and yeah, there's definitely that fear, certainly, of if you do something and it somehow gets out of your walled garden or whatever, then certainly that could be a major disaster. So how do you see AI then really affecting and impacting digital marketing?
Right now, the areas where we see a lot of great efficiencies and scale are the ability to do things faster, to unify data points. Some of the challenges for years have been for a long time, not just years, for decades, has been attribution, right? And we kind of get some better connected data sources and then privacy things, which again, I'm not weighing in on either side of the good or bad because I put on my consumer hat and I don't want my data running around either. But feels like it's like two steps forward, one step back often with how much of a picture we get of customer journey and purchasing and being able to put that into our CRM and be able to go target ads and nurture that customer lifetime value. But data gets taken away and pulled back, and it's not really about the data, it's about how we can have a genuine like one-to-one marketing message to a prospect or customer. None of us in marketing, hopefully, want to be spamming people or blasting out things that are not relevant or spending
Mm,
ad spend on the wrong 80, the 100% of the possible audience out there versus the 20% who might be closer to buying or in that mode right now. And so in many ways right now it's an efficiency thing, and it's helping in terms of being a tool where we can audit things faster on the technical side of things, or scale at least some of the content ideation and maybe some of the basic levels of creation. There are a lot of really cool things though when we start layering it together, and so when we give it access without giving it confidential information and having our safety policies in place, when we can give it access to data sources and when it can start doing two, three, four things ahead that a human would do, but would take a human hours, tens of hours to do, and maybe not even be able to get the data connected to do properly. When we can test on that and do things so much faster than before, that's where we can win today. And where I see a lot of things going. It used to be that I've got to have 7 APIs bringing all this into this dashboard, and
mm,
then I have to put my human brain, which again is still really relevant here, into analyzing, what happened, why did this convert, why did this content resonate, why did this miss. Um, it's getting a lot cooler to be able to put those things together or just have it out there and see how it can synthesize it and how it can find things that I might miss as one person versus having a team of people all looking at this and putting tons of billable hours into
mm.
something where it can be coming to me instead of me going to get it.
Well, do you see though then that if AI is making the digital marketing, I don't know, not easier, but faster and potentially even better. I think, the quality is actually better. Does that then mean that the client is going to start to demand and lower prices?
Yeah, well, if I'm not getting more efficient and be able to deliver more in the same amount of time and getting left behind, on my side as the agency, then I think the client should have that expectation of at least either I should be getting more or seeing more, or we should be getting further along and where we're going faster than if we were doing it in an old school way and challenging that. Like I said a minute ago, with companies leveling up, they expect that in terms of their vendors and agencies as well. And so we need to be on the same pace in terms of the advances we're making and the opportunities to leverage AI to help us see things through to ROI. I don't know that we're there yet at a point where that expectation should be that dollars should go down, because there's a lot of oversight and there are a lot of areas like Google Ads, for example, that leverages its own AI, but not with our intent or our ROI in mind. I often continue to say that Google will take our money whether it's working or not. And we see that with some of their AI based optimizations. And I say AI based, but they're, we could debate whether it's truly AI or not, but some of the optimizations that they will automatically apply, which are geared to spend more money, but it's blind to or not necessarily connected enough to our own data all the way through our CRM to understand if that really became a customer or not, especially when we have more sophisticated sales processes. So in some cases, it's behind the curve, and that depends on how much control we have over it. But when it comes to content and our own messaging and our own engagement, that's a lot more open ended.
Mm. Yeah, so how has AI helped SEO?
We have we do a lot of crawling, a lot of auditing, a lot of technical layer things. I still look at AI, or look at SEO through having three pillars of technical, on page, and off page. And the technical layer is a lot about crawling and understanding if your content can be found, and some of the technical layers and things like, page experience, and a lot of those things would leverage five or six different tools or manual reviews. Back in the day, I can't imagine going back and doing things the way I did by hand back 15, 20 years ago. Based on, the tools of the past decade have sped things up, and AI is helping us do it even more faster on the technical side. um, Things that might crawl and run and take a server to run over a few days, now it can be done in a matter of minutes. With the way we've kind of built things, my team at least has built things. um, on the on page layer, or that pillar, is heavily based on content. We touched on content and some of the quality of it, so there are ways to definitely speed up. I mean, I can get 100 article ideas, even if I'm having a human writer write them or I'm writing them. Getting 100 ideas
Yeah.
versus me pushing that to the end of my day and coming up with five, and then
Right.
realizing I've already written three of them in the past 3 years, right? It's going to be able to connect all of that, to be able to help with at least the research and the ideation process, if not writing it. Again, I'm not going to plant a flag in the ground on either side of that, or take a firm stand. And then on the off page layer, that's the most interesting one to me, because that's the one that Google fights a lot. That's who links to who, and a lot of the authority and trust building status to validate your content is as worthy as you might put forward that it is for being trustworthy and ranked where it is. Link building has always been a challenge where Google has to fight
Mm.
spam and fight third party services. So I'm not saying that to have AI accelerate link building and fire all these links and the spam cannon out at your site. But it can definitely accelerate research of looking for the quality, not quantity, of link sources and other trust signal focused third party opportunities. So there's definitely an opportunity today to have SEO scaled much better with the different tools, whether they're software based and SaaS products that you can buy, or homemade and home built, um, to scale it much better than we could 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like it. It makes a lot of sense. So you've written a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the digital marketing success plan is, as I mentioned, the flagship digital strategy and planning process that we employ here at Voltage. It's got its own standalone site and resources. It is essentially my attempt to give away the five-step process that we go through to help clients go build their process and their ultimate plan. It's an acronym for that five-step process. It's called START. It starts with making sure that your strategy is the first thing that you nail down. And I don't mean strategy like being, 60-page document saying who we're going to reach and all the research, or that it's our strategy is we're going to do, SEO. It's an articulatable or documented strategy of, if you can get it into one slide and it's not 3-point font, in a few sentences, to be able to articulate who your target audience is, what constitutes a success in reaching them, and how you're going to do it. And so getting oftentimes on the same page is the challenge. You might have three or four or five stakeholders in the room on the marketing team or in the C-suite or wherever who are using some of the same language, but they don't mean the same thing. Much, or there are deficiencies or challenges in brand strategy or product development, or even customer service and customer delivery, that can hold you back or bias you in different ways. But getting your strategy and your ultimate goals and how you're going to measure this, what the KPI is, knowing what you have that's of value, looking backwards or today, that you can leverage from content or subject matter expertise or unique value going forward, is important. Then we move into tactics In many cases, tactics get put ahead of strategy. We've been blogging for 10 years and we write 3 blog posts a month. Where'd that come from? What are those driving for you? Or we just do social. Okay, well, let's get this aligned and make sure strategy tactics are subordinate to strategy and we keep this in the right order. But this is also to challenge biases. And maybe I don't like Facebook personally, but maybe our entire audience is on Facebook. And even though we can't track it to the ultimate conversion, it's an opener and it's there in the journey, and we need to have it there where somebody is to be found. And so doing the research and getting the right mix of tactics out there mapped to your funnel or customer journey. And then we get to move into the application layer. And that's okay, is our website ready? That our assets, our creative assets, our ad inventories, do they have what we need to match up with the strategy that we've defined and the tactics that we've identified that would be in that strategy? So this is where we start to see it come to life visually and in a messaging type of way of what objects, what things do we have that are going to engage with our target audience. And then it rounds out with review. And transformation review is this is being able to measure it in the entire system. So making sure that we have our, whether it's GA4 or our own enterprise level analytics set up, we have all the data sources coming in. I mentioned those earlier, the challenges of getting those unified, and nothing off the shelf or out of the box understands what we're paying to our internal marketing team or to our agency, or even what the software costs itself and some of the
Mm.
resources we're paying for to be able to answer the ultimate ROI question for the marketing department or the digital marketing efforts specifically. So getting to that point is critical. And many times, if we don't have it set up to start with, or at some point in time, we can't go recapture that data to be able to look back and understand what's working and what's not. And then, as I mentioned, the last step is transformation. I call it transformation. I give it a lofty word, but that's making sure the plan is documented. We have tactics mapped out for the first 3, 6, 9, 12 months, and we know who's doing what. So it doesn't just, we have a plan and then we put it on the shelf when we get busy. And then, or we chase some of those shiny objects. The CEO gives you a drive by and they're like, well, what about this audience? Or the product team surprises you. And they're like, we want to promote, we just launched this new thing. If you're in marketing and your organization's kind of siloed, or if, a sales team's like, we're going to run this promo. Well, if you're caught off guard and you're going now and pivoting and creating something for them, what's the opportunity cost? Are we still focusing on all the things that are in our plan? Or are we going over there and doing that thing extra? And the last thing you want is at the end of the year to be like, well, sound like a bunch of excuses. Well, we didn't see ROI for the initial goals because we were asked to do this thing. And then this big disruption from Google came out and we did this, and we never went back and revised and adapted our plan or reset our expectations along the way.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Well, I'd love to talk to you further, but I have one last question for you, and that is, so what advice would you give to an up and coming new marketer?
Yeah, this is a great question. I had an opportunity to talk recently with a local university and their students about it. Don't just get yourself siloed into that one thing that today your job or it requires or that you think is interesting to you. Um, a great example is for someone who's like, I just want to be a social media strategist, or I just want to be a Google paid ads strategist. There's a lot more to all of those disciplines to make them successful. So social media is fueled by content. Most of them are fueled by content in some way. They're all targeted to target audiences. So audience and research is broader typically than that platform or channel that you might be in. And they're all measured in some way. So whether it's GA4 or whether other analytics and measurement platforms, if you go into something really narrow, you hopefully you're in a huge team and you love what you do and you can be there. But chances are someone at some point is going to want to know how what you did performed, how they can leverage content or what you're doing across other channels and disciplines, and how to further integrate things. And so early career, if you're in a very specific role, try to branch out, and even if you're not wearing other hats, go seek out other disciplines and skills you can add. And if you wear many hats and you're a generalist, figure out how to leverage that on the other side, which is what I did when I moved from being a project manager and more of a generalist in my career into SEO. And know that understand how having knowledge of multiple things, even if you become an expert in one, is a benefit and not a drawback for you.
Yeah, and I think what that means is that you can't just stop learning, you can't just stop investing in yourself. You have to continue, except now the onus is on you. It's not like you have a final to test for or something else to study for. Now the onus is on you to keep learning and broadening your knowledge. And especially with AI, where it has the possibility that it can, make it very difficult for you to advance unless you can really add value to the company. And the only way you can do that is by continually learning faster than everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, Corey, thank you so much. I wish we had more time. It's there's never enough time, but that just means we'll have you back again. So, but really appreciate it. And so tell me, where can people find you?
Yeah, a few different places. If you're interested in the book, the website, it's called the Digital Marketing Success Plan. That's a really long domain name. So it's the dmsp.com. Or you can reach me at Corey, Corey, at thedmsp.com. If you're interested on the agency side of things, that's voltage.digital. And similarly, Corey, Corey, at voltage.digital will find me there. Or if you want to interested in having me speak or be a guest, CoreyMorris.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and really appreciate it. And look forward to downloading your book and seeing what's in there. I'm sure there's something to learn from that. So again, thank you so much, and for the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos and podcasts in this series on the backstory on marketing and AI. And if you get a chance, please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com and download some of the excerpts of my book. And if you really like this, if you like this video and podcast, please rate it with 5 stars. Corey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Guy. Thank you. I appreciate it too.
Absolutely.